With some of the longer videos I make, I think it's really beneficial to just do smaller ones where I'm just showing the art process. So here is just the artwork with some commentary so that if you want to know how I did this, here you go. If you want to watch the full video, it's linked on screen in the description and also in the comment section. So feel free to check that out. Enjoy the video, and these posters are available on my ArtStage account for $1 digital downloads along with physical posters. So check that out. Alrighty, let's get into the video.
Inking this piece was incredibly fun and super enjoyable and rewarding. I absolutely love how this series is coming out. You would think that this being part 3 of 7 that I would be bored out of my mind or overwhelmed, but no, I'm still loving this process because I'm pushing myself further and more artistically as I study not just Alex Ross, but also a little bit of Bernie Wrightson's approach to inking. Those two artists are being my biggest influence in this series, and I love the fact that I'm incorporating both of them into my work. Now, something about Envy that I do want to highlight is he's a really weird character. For one, he's the only one in my series that doesn't have a human partner or vanguard, so he keeps his original form, this buff tiger with a mohawk and an eel head at the end of his tail. But also color-wise, he's the opposite of the other characters. All of his siblings, the hero and the rest of the villains, are black with a colored highlight. For Wrath, he's black and red. For Gluttony, she's black with green. But the thing about Envy is, well, he's green with black highlights. And the problem with that is these characters are meant to look like they're made out of muscles. If you took someone and you skinned them, that's what they look like. They're this raw, muscular figure that morphs the muscles around to create the shapes that they need. And so for Envy, who's a shapeshifter, the idea that I had, he was mostly made out of your heart muscle, which is what all the colored parts of the other characters are meant to be. It's the strongest part of them. It's like their armor. And the heart muscle, which is a smooth muscle, is the strongest muscle in the human body. So for Envy, that proposed a challenge because since he's mostly made of that smooth muscle and I do the rendering in gouache, that meant that the inks would have been lacking and he would look very different. But then I figured, hey, I kind of don't want to do that. I still want to keep those line details. I do want him to feel like he does fit in, just in a different way compared to the other pieces in the series. So I thought, you know what? Let's go ahead and render those lines. Let's go ahead and put that detailing in there, but let's make them really thin so they can be easily overpowered by the layers of gouache. They're still there, they're just more subtle. And if I need to, I probably could go in and individually ink those lines back in with thicker light gouache on the top layer. Either way, I do want to have it there because I could use it as a base that just subtly shows you the gouache work, or I could just use them as a guide to put them in again with gouache. Either way, I'm still debating how I'm going to do that because in all honesty, I am filming this segment before I paint it, and I really do like how the inks look. This is a really fun piece, and it proposes a few challenges. I'm going to be doing the gouache work very differently. It's going to be really unique, and it's going to be a piece that, if I was honest with myself, I probably should have saved for last because I could take everything I learned from the other pieces and incorporate it into this piece. But me doing this piece right here really came down to two factors. For one, I already know who I'm going to illustrate at the end of this series. The big bad, oldest brother, Pride himself. But secondly, I kind of already had all the green gouache already mixed and prepared on my palette, and I'm not going to waste that because that paint's expensive, so I had to do Envy next. Similarly, when I do either Sloth or Greed, I'm going to have to do one and then the other because I'll have the yellow pre-mixed on my palette because they share a yellow as a color scheme. Either way, I love how the inks came out. I can talk more about the influences of the inking, mainly because I'm a huge Bernie Wrightson fan. I love his ink work, especially on Frankenstein and Swamp Thing, so I definitely took a lot of influence from that in this process. But again, I'm trying to keep the inks minimal as a guide for the gouache, so there's kind of a weird balancing act going on. Either way, I just want to tell you guys know what was going through my mind when I was inking this piece. Love how it came out, so let's go ahead and take a look with the inks completed and see where we're at halfway through this project. Painting this piece was incredibly fun and super rewarding. I absolutely loved the entire process, and while it did take over 7 hours, it was an incredibly rewarding experience that allowed me to get the vision that was in my head down on paper. Now, you could break down this process into 6 steps. The first step was to go in and line my pencils with my eraser, only because I'm going to go in with a darker wash, so I want to make sure that those details that I inked wouldn't have been lost. So that's going to be the first step here. The second step was the underpainting, which was very different from my other pieces that I've done in this series. As I mentioned in the inking, Envy is a very unique creature as he is the opposite of the other characters in the story. So instead of doing a colored base for my underwash, such as green, red, or any other color, I actually went with my underwash being that of the liquid charcoal. That allowed me to have a really solid foundation that I could build upon later. And if you notice with this process, I'm not worrying about staying in the lines. I'm really being very loose with this because I can clean this up later on. I just want to get the paint on the paper, really start to cover it, really start to get those values in, because the underpainting is incredibly important for my gouache painting. So I want to make sure that I'm really doing a good job putting it down and making sure that I'm covering the whole piece so I can get that mood and that atmosphere across in this piece. Now I am using a quill to do this. A quill is one of my favorite brushes of all time because it gives me a lot of control while still being able to cover a large area. If you are doing watercolor or gouache work, a quill is a necessity in your tool belt. Even if you're an inker, I still would recommend to get a quill because of how versatile they are, not just in covering small to large areas, but the variety of techniques that you can incorporate with a quill. After the underpainting was done, I then went in and started working on the largest part of the video, and that was layering all my different shades of green, and there was quite a few. I did mention that I am reusing the same colors that I had in the gluttony painting, but that doesn't mean they're the exact same. I did remix them, I did mess with the water ratio, and I'm also having a lot of fun just layering the lightest shade of green first, and then working my way down to the darker shades. Something I'm going to do continuously throughout this entire time lapse is you're going to see me really working hard and just trying to get darker and deeper rich tones, and I'm layering. This is a really fun process because I like to work light to dark, similar to watercolor, similar to alcohol markers. I know with gouache you can work light to dark or dark to light. You can even do your midtones and then go dark or light. However you want to work, gouache is super versatile. But because I want to keep a lot of the detail that I put in the inks and rendering, I want to have that shine through into the final piece. So I'm working in this light to dark way. I'm really layering down all the different greens, all the different shades. I'm even going back and working in a little bit more of the liquid charcoal. I'm really trying to go in and just get it onto the paper, and I'm having a lot of fun. And keep in mind, again, I'm not worrying about staying in the lines. I'm being very loose with this because that looseness is going to make it more natural. It's going to make it look better. It's going to make it look really good. It's going to give this piece a life and a energy to it. And I'm really kind of keeping in mind what my light source is. I'm also keeping in mind what is the different muscle groups and how they are going to be affected by the light. I'm also trying to make sure that this figure feels three-dimensional. I'm really going in and making sure that the muscles are laying properly, and I'm adjusting the light there, but also that the light as a whole is affecting it. So it's a lot of different things to think about when you're going in and starting to render this type of creature and this weird amalgamation of muscles, and it's really fun to do. It's a lot of thinking, which can be overwhelming, especially if you're new to art and you're not used to thinking about things in a three-dimensional way that are on a 2D surface. It is challenging, but I have to say, for one, I was lucky enough to have good references that helped guide my decision making when it came to doing the lighting. But really, I just had a fun process putting this together. This was super cool, super fun. I really enjoyed the challenge that these pieces pose to me because it allows me to push myself artistically. That's something that I've said a lot in these videos, but that's true because I am pushing myself as an artist. I'm trying to go further. I'm trying to master my craft. I'm trying to become a better artist. And these pieces where I am trying to emulate an artist that is just light years ahead of me, it's cool because I'm reverse engineering the process. I'm trying to figure out what makes his art and adapt it into my style and try to study and learn from him and level up my skills. And that's why every time I do one of these pieces, I just feel like my art has leveled up, and this piece is no exception. And while there were unique challenges with this piece, as I mentioned before in the inking, how he's so different from my other characters, how he looks different, how in the story he's different. There's so many different things to keep in mind, and it's so easy to make mistakes, which I did do. I made a few mistakes in this piece, but I was able to fix them, and I'm just doing what I can. While you're gonna see me go back and layer more green, I have to say that this first step, which was the biggest of the footage that I had for the painting process, where I'm going in and layering all the different greens, it really was starting to come alive in a very cool, very unique way. But that is it for the third stage of this piece. Now, the fourth stage of this piece was one that I originally did not land, and it was a really good suggestion from my coworker Brandon. He suggested that I should put in a shadow to really add a three-dimensional element to this, because unlike the other pieces, you can actually see his feet and where they would interact with the ground. And I said, you know what? That is a solid idea. I love this idea. So I went in and I added a shadow. Now, is it a perfect shadow? No. Did I continue to tweak it throughout the video? Yes. Do I love how it looks? Heck yeah. I really like this idea. And Brandon, I know you watch watch the videos sometimes, so I have to say thank you very much for the suggestion. It was a really awesome idea, and I really appreciate it, man. You are the best. After giving the shadow plenty of time to dry, I decided to go in and do what would normally be my last step of the process, and that's cleaning up the background. So anywhere where the green went over or the underpainting is showing and I don't need it to, I'm going in and I'm cleaning that with a pre-mix of whitewash. Now this is a pretty simple process, and luckily for me it didn't take too long. I know when I first did this project with the realistic wrath piece, that took over about an hour and a half to cover up the background, and then the gluttony piece was worse, being closer to like 3 hours because of how like messy my underpainting was. Luckily here I kept things very tight but still loose, so it was a pretty quick cleanup, being only about 20 to 30 minutes give or take. I really liked the whole process. In all honesty, I was really happy with how easily it was to clean up and get something really solid, and I did go in and add a little bit more whitewash off camera, mainly because I didn't notice the camera stopped recording. It was a really easy process to clean up, and while it can be nerve-wracking because you don't want to cover all the work that you just did, just keep a steady hand, take your time, and that's really what I do in this process, just to ensure that I have something that's really clean, really nice, and looks awesome. After cleaning up the background, I went in and added the final layers of green to this piece. Now, this is one of those things that I personally struggle with, and that's walking away from my art, taking a break. It's really tough for me because I'm in the mindset that what's the point? It's just delaying it. You need to tackle it. You need to get it done. Just running away from your problem is not going to solve it. And it's something that is very easy for artists to get into that mindset. For me, it's something I've been struggling for years, and Sarah is really good at pulling me away from my work and helping me like see it in a different light. And while I was happy with the piece, and don't get me wrong, it is good, I knew at that stage it needed to be better. So working on the background and allowing me to have that time to figure out what needs to be done was such a blessing, because it allowed me to go in, mix up some more green paint, and go in with the final layers. And it really took this piece from a solid 8 to a 10. Like going in and adding those final shades of dark green just allowed the piece to come to life. It gave it more value. It gave it more dimension. It gave it that life that I really wanted it to have. I really wanted this piece to look like it was an actual real tiger made out of muscles with this weird eel at the end of his tail and this flowing mohawk. And going in and adding those last layers of green really brought it to life. And it wasn't that long. It took a little over half an hour, but that half an hour just layering those final shades of green tied it together in a way that when I was done, when I put the last green on the leg, I looked at it and was like, this is perfect. This is my vision. And sometimes you just have to do that. Sometimes you have to step aside. And I absolutely love how this piece came out. It looks so cool. It's so weird, it's so different, but it fits in the series that we're doing, and I love how this piece came out. Now with the last bit of paint drying, you're probably thinking, hey, we're done, we're there. No, we have 2 more steps. First, we gotta remove the tape.